The soul struggle with the mind and senses, the physical body and the mental subtle body, prakriti sthane karsati, struggling and trying to enjoy. But the loving dealings of Radha and Krishna are manifestations of purity. They have nothing to do with the contaminated business of this material world. Therefore, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami advises us or advises his mind to turn away from hypocrisy, from deceit, from the false project for enjoyment in the material world, and turn toward the service of the absolute truth. Krishna with his spiritual internal energy. That's the plea to the mind, the directions to the mind, and the instructions to the mind. Srila Bhakti Vinod in his commentary says that Sri Rupa Goswami himself prays in Prarthana Paddhati of his Stavamala. Shuddha Shuddha Ganageya Gaurangim Kurangi Langi Mekshanam Chita Kothindu Bimbasyam Ambudhambara Samprutam. O Sri Radha, I offer obeisances to you. You have a complexion of pure golden hue, but this is of a pair of doe-like restless eyes. Have a face that conquered the beauty of millions of full moons, and dress in a dark cloud like garments. So Rupa Goswami gave up all material wealth and opulences. Tyakta Turnam Asesa Mandalapati Shrenim Shada Tuchavat, and took up the life of a beggar. Bhutva Dina Ganesha Karunya Kopina Kantha Shrito. Yet here he is describing the beautiful qualities of a woman. Beautiful limbs, beautiful eyes. That means he is not talking about a woman of this material world. The Goswamis had everything. Raghunath Das Goswami's wife, for example, was a young, aristocratic, beautiful girl, comparable to the goddess of fortune. But he gave her up. The Goswamis has no business going to Vrindavan and then discussing the future of a beautiful young girl. But Rupa Goswami glorifies Srimati Radharani because her entire existence is a manifestation of Krishna's spiritual energy. As Krishna is glorious, so his Swarup Shakti is glorious. And their pastimes are glorious. The Goswamis are teaching us this. This material world is the reflection of their reality, a perverted reflection. The mind is attracted to the reflection. Why should you be so captivated by the reflections of reality? Here is the actual reality, but not for enjoyment, just for service. This is mine, this is mine. The energy is Krishna's energy. When Hanuman went to Lanka, he saw a beautiful woman lying in the palace, half drunk, vulnerable, but he wasn't attracted. He thought, I have come here not to enjoy but to serve. And the most beautiful of all the women was Srimati Sita Devi. Hanuman's concern was not to enjoy but to see Sita restored to the side of Lord Ramachandra. That's an example of pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, the devotee has no interest in enjoying. He is interested in serving. Wonderful instructions by Raghunath Das Goswami. So now we will dwell on the life of Srila Prabhupada. We are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We are reading on volume number 3. Chapter title is Our Master has not yet finished his work. I'll read one paragraph to bring up to the speed what we read yesterday, and then we will continue. When they were allowed back, one disciple asked cautiously, quote, "Didn't it hurt, Swamiji?" Srila Prabhupada, his golden skin form, wrapped in a white hospital garments, and lying between the white sheets, turned slightly and said, quote, "We are tolerant." That's where we live. So Rupanuga Prabhu is explaining this situation in his word as follows. When Swamiji was first admitted to the hospital, it was very hard for me. I didn't know how I should act. I didn't have much experience with this kind of emergency. I was very uncertain as to what service to do for Swamiji. It was a frightening experience. Swamiji's life was at stake, yet his disciple didn't know what to do to save him. He lay on the bed as if at their mercy. But the hospital staff considered him their property. An old man with heart trouble is subject of investigation. And for Swamiji's disciple, this was 100 times worse than dealing with Mr. Price and company. Now it was not just a matter of risking money, but of risking Swamiji. Should they allow the EEG? What was an EEG? Was an operation necessary? An operation. But Swamiji had said that he should never even be brought to a hospital. Quote, "Give me massage," unquote, was all he had said. And, quote, "chant Hare Krishna," unquote. So when Srila Prabhupada mentioned his preference for the Ayurvedic medical treatments available in India, some of the devotees suggested they bring a doctor from India. After considering the expense, Prabhupada decided to send a letter first. Unable to sit up or write, he slowly dictated a letter to Sri Krishna Pandit, who had given him quarters for several years in his temple in Delhi. Satsarup read it back to Prabhupada and then type it right there in Prabhupada's hospital room. The letter is as follows. I'm writing the letter from the hospital. All of a sudden, I have developed some headache as well as throbbing of the chest. When I rub my chest, I feel some sensation in my left hand, and when I rub my left hand, I feel sensation in my chest. My left hand no more works independently. I therefore ask you if there is any good Vedic physician in Mathura who can send me some medicines. That is, you purchase and send them by airmail to our temple. Address ISKCON, 26 2nd Avenue, New York, New York. The symptom is predominantly when I get severe pain within my head. And the trembling of the left hand is coming every 10 or 15 minutes. I'm afraid if this is not a disease like Lakya, the boys are taking utmost care of me. There is no scarcity of care. But still, after all, this body is subject to death. I came here with a great mission to execute my spiritual master order. But my heart is stabbing me. Of course, I'm not afraid of Maya. I know Maya cannot touch me. But still, if I die in this condition, my mission will remain unfulfilled. Please therefore pray to Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya and Vrindavan, Bihar, to rescue me this time. My mission is still not finished. I wish to live for a few more days. They are prepared to call an experienced Ayurvedic physician who can treat such disease, but I am not allowed the boys. But if necessary, if you can give me an expert physician who can travel here, we can send necessary money for his coming here or arrange for air ticket. You can consult the man in charge of Dhaka Shakti. At last, I may inform you that I am inclined toward Ayurvedic treatment. You can consult the Ayurvedic physician in Vrindavan, who is a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He knows me very well. He sells my books also. Two things are to be done if it is possible. First, to send me proper medicines and directions. That will be nice. But if I require to return, that also I can do. Please try to reply as soon as possible in English, because my students cannot read Hindi. So long as I'm in bed, it's not possible to read letters. You can treat this letter very urgently. Consult necessary physicians and let me know what I'm to do. In Mathura, there are undoubtedly many Ayurvedic physicians and many quacks also. Try to avoid the quacks. I would have returned to India immediately, but the doctors say it is risky. If need be, I shall return as soon as I get strength to take the strain of the journey. I repeat my symptoms so that you can take necessary care. All of a sudden, I developed some troubling between the heart and stomach about 4 days ago. I was so exhausted, it was like fainting. Then I consulted a doctor who came and gave me medicine, but it was of no good effect. Therefore, my student at once transferred me to the hospital where they are spending more or less 400 rupees daily. There is no question of neglect. All scientific treatment is going on, but I think Ayurvedic medicine will be proper. Therefore, I request you to take immediate steps and reply me. I hope this letter will convince you the actual position. While reading this letter, you may consult some friend who knows English very well so that he will read it correctly and reply correctly. There is no scope for corresponding in Bengali or in Hindi. By Krishna's grace, on the afternoon of Srila Prabhupada's second day in the hospital, he showed slight improvement. His heart was still causing him pain. His facial expression remained grave, with never a smile. But he was a bit stronger. The interns, nurses, and the doctors came and went on schedule, treating him impersonally. One doctor did seem a little interested in what Prabhupada was all about. And at Prabhupada's request, Kirtananda played a tape lecture for the doctor. He listened politely, but then said, quote, "It doesn't ring a bell," unquote. The doctor said that he wanted to run a few more tests and that Swamiji might be able to leave after a few weeks, if all went well. Srila Prabhupada tried speaking to the doctor, wanted to explain about Krishna. Jadurani had brought two of her paintings to the hospital room, one of Radha and Krishna, and the other of the fierce half-lion, half-man incarnation, Lord Nrsimha, tearing apart the demon Hiranyakashipu. Speaking in a very low voice, Prabhupada said that these two pictures show how God is many-sided. Quote, "Here he is in his loving exchange, and here also we see that angers come from Krishna or God," unquote. The doctor politely said that he had his own philosophy and that Swamiji shouldn't be preaching while in such weak health. He should rest, advising the disciple not to allow their guru to speak, and doctor excused himself and continued his rounds. Srila Prabhupada, with his slight improvement, expressed more disapproval of being in the hand of the hospital personnel. They weren't able to do anything, he said. Krishna was in control. Quote, "If Krishna wants to kill you, then no one can save you. But if Krishna wants to save you, then no one can kill you," unquote. So Damodar Prabhu is explaining that situation in his own word as follows. "I was there when a doctor came in to check his reflexes. There was the usual tapping with a little rubber hammer on his knee, that kind of thing. Swamiji was visibly annoyed with this man's coming in and tapping him all over. He was capable of diagnosing and giving the prescriptions for the cure. And it annoyed him that these men, who obviously didn't know what they were doing, were coming in and interfering with the process of recuperation." Achyutanand explained in his own word as follows. "The nurse would always let the door slam, and every time it slammed, Swamiji would wince. He said, quote, "Tell her not to slam the door," unquote. And she would say, quote, "Okay." And then she would let it slam again. Srila Prabhupada began sitting up in the bed and taking prasadam from the temple, supplemented by some of the vegetarian item on the hospital menu. He would say a prayer and offer the hospital food to the picture of his spiritual master. The devotees would sit at his feet, watching him as he then mixed with his right hand the carrots, peas, and mashed potatoes. And he would always distribute some of his food into the hand of his disciples. Jadurani is explaining in her own words as follows. We bought him many different kinds of fruit. We told him we had bought apples, but he was so tired, he only said, "Oh," and seemed disinterested. We told him we have bought oranges, but again, "Oh." He gave so many tired "ohs" as he seemed disinterested. Finally, I said, quote, "We bought you watermelons." And immediately his face lit up. Oh. Rotating in 4-hour shifts. 2 devotees at the time were always with Prabhupada. Although awake, he would remain silent for long intervals. But massaging always continued, except when he was asleep. Gradually, the paralysis on his left side went away. Once, while Srila Prabhupada was sitting up in the bed, one boy massaging his leg and another softly, almost constantly stroking the back of his neck. Prabhupada remarked that if he were not sick, he would have considered the massaging and rubbing too familiar. Damodar is explaining in his word. I was massaging Swamiji's temple with one hand, my thumb on one temple and other fingers on the other temple. As I was massaging, Swamiji kept saying, harder, harder, and I would squeeze harder. I thought, gee, I don't know if I should squeeze so hard because he's sick. But he kept insisting, harder, harder. Purushottam Prabhu is explaining in his word as follows. I was massaging Swamiji's head and I started singing the chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya. When I started singing, a very beautiful smile came on his face. Although I did it only briefly, he took pleasure in hearing. He seems to take it that I was ministering to him just by singing Sri Krishna Chaitanya. As Srila Prabhupada gained strength, his disciples were ready with questions. Purushottam asked, quote, Swamiji, in the scripture, when it described the lotus feet of Krishna, what does that mean, lotus feet? Prabhupada then sang a verse. Samstrita ye pad pallava plavam mahat padam punya yaso murare bhava ambudhir vatsa padam param padam 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 yat vipadam natesam. Then he asked the 3 devotees present to repeat each line after him again and again until they had learn both the tune and the verse. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada explained, sitting up in his bed, quote, the time of that is compared to crossing a vast ocean. It is very fearful. One doesn't know where he will go in the next life. And at every step, there is a danger in the material world. But for one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, then vast, dangerous ocean of birth and death becomes shrunk up to no more than the impression made in a mud by a calf's footprint. There is a danger, but the devotee doesn't care for it. Just like if a gentleman is riding by a carriage and he passes a small puddle, he considers it insignificant. So do you understand now what lotus feet means? It was clear. Then Purushottam asks another question. Why do people say that God has no name? Srila Prabhupada replied by asking, why? Since God is everything, he should not have a name. In fact, he said, all names are describing Krishna. Prabhupada asked Purushottama what his name had been before initiation. Paul, he said. What does Paul mean? Prabhupada asked. It means little. Yes, Prabhupada said, that is Krishna. He is the smallest of the small. Satsarup then volunteered his name, Stephen, which means crown. Yes, Prabhupada replied, Krishna is a king. But discussions were rare. Usually the hours were quiet. Prabhupada rested, and the devotees on watch sat in chairs on opposite side of his bed, reading or chanting softly on their beds. Late one afternoon, as the Manhattan sky turned to twilight, Prabhupada sat up after having been silent for an hour and said, quote, I don't know Krishna, but I know my Guru Maharaj, unquote. One day, Brahmananda began giving Prabhupada a minute breakdown of financial conditions of the New York temple. In the midst of the details report, Brahmananda suddenly stopped, looked up at Prabhupada and said, do you want me to tell all the details? I thought you would want me to let you know. I mean, you should know. Prabhupada replied that if Brahmananda to take care of everything without his knowing the details, that would be all right. Suddenly, one morning, Swami Satchitanand, the famous Hatha Yoga Guru, entered Prabhupada's room, grinning through his big grey beard. He was dressed in a saffron silk kurta and yogi pants, and accompanied by one of his young American male disciples. Srila Prabhupada sat up in bed, smiling at the pleasant surprise. They had not met before. Srila Prabhupada offered Swami Satchitanand a seat at his bedside and asked Jadurani to stand and give her seat to Swami Satchitanand's disciple. Prabhupada and Swami Satchitanand spoke in Hindi, and no one else in the room could follow their conversation. At one point, however, Srila Prabhupada held up his hand and looked at it with indifference and then with disgust. Although his words were Hindi, the gesture and sardonic expression conveyed his meaning. The body was material and therefore could not be expected to be well. Prabhupada asked Achyutananda to read aloud from a particular purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If there is enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, and enough jewel, then why the people need for economic development in the shape of machine and tools? Can the machine and tools supply vigor and vitality to the men and animals? Can the machinery produce grains, fruits and milk, or jewelry or silk? Is not jewelry and silk varieties of foodstuff prepared with ghee and grains, or milk and fruit sufficient for man's pure, luxurious and healthy life? Then why there is artificial luxurious life of cinema, cars, radios, flash and hotels? Has this civilization produced any good result more than the dog's mentality of quarreling with one another, individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men in the hellish factory and the warfield at the whims of a particular man? When Prabhupada offered to play the record, he and his disciple had made Swami Satchidanand politely agreed. But when Prabhupada offered to play the other side of the record, Swami Satchidanand said he had to leave. He offered Prabhupada some fruits, and Prabhupada, after accepting them, told his disciple, distribute this and give him some of our fruit in exchange, unquote. As Swami Satchidananda rose to leave, Srila Prabhupada suddenly got out of the bed and stood shakily. No, 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 Swami Satchidananda protested. Don't disturb yourself. And then he was gone, escorted by Achyutananda. Srila Prabhupada lay back in the bed. Is he a Swami? Jadurani asked. Why not? Prabhupada replied. But after a few moments, he added, Swami means one who knows Krishna. There was no more talk about it, but Prabhupada was pleased by the unexpected visit. The constant coming and going of Srila Prabhupada's young followers, wearing tilak on their forehead and carrying watermelons, special food, flowers, and painting of Krishna, created a special interest among the hospital staff. Sometimes worker would ask questions, and sometimes the devotee would talk with them about the Hare Krishna movement. Once, a nurse came by Prabhupada's room and asked, in the caste system in India, what is the name of the highest caste and what are they called? Krishna conscious, Prabhupada firmly replied. He asked a disciple to give the nurse prasadam. I think the time has reached and we should be punctual in our activities. Devotees may have other duties to perform. So before they leave, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the dusk of the lotus feet. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much for attending and supporting. Krishna is very kind to all of us. Otherwise, there are